Seeing all the controversy going around, I had a brilliant idea. What if I turned this into a game? Turning the controversy of Argentina rigging the matches into a video game. So that's exactly what I'm doing. How will this go? I have no idea. So let's try to do this. Somehow. But before this video starts, I just want to say that this video and this game are made only for entertainment. I want to say that I'm not insulting anyone or making fun of anyone. So please don't take it the wrong way. We're only here to have fun. Okay, now let's start. My concept for the game is very simple. Argentina just won the 2026 World Cup. Actually, I'm recording this before the finals, so they might not have won, I don't know. But let's pretend that Argentina did in fact win. And FIFA's president comes in and says, "Hey, congratulations on winning, you guys deserved it." But Argentina's star player Lionel Messi says this: "No, I want more." So here's the concept of the game. You play as FIFA's president, and your goal is to change the records of all previous World Cups, and make it so Argentina is the champion of all of them. That way Lionel Messi will be satisfied. But players from other countries aren't really happy. They don't want all World Cups to be handed over to Argentina, so you have to fight them, and possibly kill them. But everything is worth it if Lionel Messi is happy. So let's create the project and start making the game. First we need the character to control, and after copying the code from my main game, we now have one. But walking around isn't enough, we need this guy to fight. So we need to add combat. And the combat is gonna be pretty simple. The attacks will work in a combo. Basically press fast and attack multiple times. And just like that we have combat. I know this doesn't look like combat, but you have to trust the process. The things you see spawning are the attacks, but we need to make them disappear after a while. And more importantly, we need an enemy. So now we have this guy who works as a punching bag. You can just beat him up if you want. And you may notice that the attacks knock back the enemy, because that's a complaint people have from my last game. So now there's knockback. Are you guys happy? Are you guys happy that there's knockback? This is what you wanted, right? I hope you're happy. Now, as much fun as it is to beat up a guy that can't move, not that I've done that myself, the enemy needs to do something. So I code the enemy to follow and hit the player. So now you can beat up the enemy, and the enemy can beat you up, which means that now beating up the enemy is merely self-defense. Like that time I roundhouse kicked that child. And the enemy's attacks also knock you back. And now you can even fight a group of enemies. This is exactly what I feel when I say that GTA 6 is not gonna be that good. But this doesn't look like combat just yet. We need models and animations. So I modeled a very simple character. I tested it in the game and it does look a bit better. So I threw this guy into Mixamo mode to get some animations because I'm very lazy, and now it actually looks like they're fighting. They look like the average football fans after a match. I also added a flash effect for when the player hits the enemies. Now you may notice that without the attack collider it doesn't look like the player is hitting the enemies. And normally this is something that I should fix. But I thought since this is football and football players are so well known for their acting, I should probably let this one stay. And now we need to handle the textures for the players. Because you may notice these guys don't really look like football players. First I made it look like they were wearing football uniforms, which does make them look like football players. This could easily pass 3 Portuguese players fighting a French player. And because the materials I used in Blender are flat colors, it's pretty easy to change them in Unity to make multiple enemies. Which allowed me to accidentally make Homer Simpson as I was testing. Homer Simpson trying to beat up a French player. I haven't seen Homer being this base since he tried to kill J.K. Rowling.
Look, it's J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter books.
The issue that we have now is the uniforms from the teams are not flat colors. So we need to make them not flat colors also for this game. And the way we do this is using UV unwrapping, which is a technique where you use the faces of the models to put them in an image and make a texture out of it. You basically draw the texture and then you put the faces in the correct places. Which is why textures in video games are pretty weird looking. After doing the UV unwrapping, I tested the textures with the uniform of my home country, Portugal. It's not the best looking thing ever, but I'm not gonna recreate it one to one because there's no point. I then made the uniforms of France and England, and as long as the textures are drawn the same way, all I need is to change the texture and it automatically fits the player. I then of course went to test this in Unity, and everything worked perfectly. And I could change the uniforms the same way I could change the flat colors. And with this I made the enemies have a random skin color, uniform, and shoe color, making all of them look unique. But we still have an issue that we can't actually kill the enemies. So after copying some more code from my main game, I made the enemies have a health system, and I also made them spawn over time, which means that now we have a core gameplay loop. Kinda. In a way. Not really. Well, the enemies still can't kill the player, so I added a health system to the player, and I also made a health bar. So now the player can take damage and die. Well, dying doesn't actually do anything right now, but I'll fix that. Eventually. One thing we need to do is to make the map look better, because this just looks terrible. So I found a football field texture, because it's a lot more fun to fight in the football field. And it already looks a lot better. I used this website to make a normal map of the ground texture, which makes the texture look a bit more 3D, and it doesn't actually look bad. I also made the game nighttime because I think the ambience is better. But what's the point of a football stadium without an audience? So I added a bunch of characters that stay in the sidelines cheering for the players. I stole some more animations from Mixamo, and I used the same logic that I used for the enemies to randomize the look of the fans. So now they stand there, they cheer, and they they enjoy the show. I also put ads on the sidelines, because that's what football matches do. And you know, I'm not a big fan of ads, but there's one I think I can get behind. And I think you should also do what this ad says. And while it is fun to beat up the enemies in the field, the game still doesn't have a goal. And no, I'm not talking about the goal nets, even though it also doesn't have those. If you remember, the goal of the game is to give the previous World Cups to Lionel Messi. And right now we can't do that. But I had a pretty good idea on how to implement that. Imagine you're fighting a French player. France is a country that has won 2 World Cups. So when you defeat a French player, there's a small chance it'll give you one of the World Cups they have won. And this goes for any country that has ever won a World Cup, except Argentina of course, because we want to give them to Argentina. So I made a list containing all the World Cups that Argentina has not won and their respective winners, which is shown to the players so they can see how many World Cups they're missing. And when you defeat an enemy, it checks if the country of that enemy is in the World Cup list. Then you get one of the World Cups they have won, and then removes that World Cup from the list, so you don't get the same World Cup twice. And of course, the World Cup now goes to Argentina. There's still some stuff we need to add, but not all the countries have uniforms yet, so let's work on that. So I present to you the uniforms for Brazil, Spain, Germany, Uruguay, and Italy. Unlike the World Cup, Italians are actually included here. Now the players and the fans have even more variety. And don't worry, I'll also be adding countries that never won the World Cup. But right now we need to address something else. We're supposed to be playing this game as FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, because he's the one that gives Messi whatever he wants. But right now our player wears a Portugal shirt, and I don't think Gianni Infantino is the kind of guy to do that. So we need to turn our player into Gianni Infantino. And that shouldn't be too hard, because there's something you may notice about this man. He is bald, he doesn't have hair, and the characters in the game also don't have hair. So all we need to do is to give the player a suit. Thankfully drawing a suit is pretty easy, and now Gianni Infantino is in the game. I think at this point the game is pretty much finished, but there's still a few things that I want to add. First of all, a way for the player to heal. Because right now, if the player takes damage, they just have to tank it. But what can we do to make the player heal? Well, because we're helping Argentina, it only makes sense for Argentina to help us as well. So I unfortunately made the Argentina uniform, and I added these guys. They are the healers. They will stay in the sidelines warming up, and after some time they will be ready to heal. If the player gets close when they're ready to heal, they will shoot an Argentina ball. Yes, an Argentina ball. And this ball heals the player. And then they go back to warming up so they can heal again. But an interesting feature about these healers is that the enemies can target them. This means that an enemy can get up to a healer, beat them up and knock them out. Knocking out a healer means that cooldown resets, and for a few seconds they cannot warm up to heal. So this is something you need to watch out for. And now it's time for the final feature in the game, Argentina powers. What the hell is an Argentina power, I hear you asking? There is now a bar at top of the screen that is filled when you kill an enemy. Once that bar is full, you get an Argentina power. An Argentina power is nothing different from a roguelike type of upgrade. You choose between 2 upgrades that will help you in the game, and then you get that buff forever. The buffs are pretty simple. It could be more damage, increasing the healing that you receive, decrease the damage dealt by enemies, increasing your total health, and other upgrades like that. Like I said, it works very similar to upgrades in roguelikes, and this should make the game a bit more exciting. So I said this was the last feature to be added to the game, but the game is still not done. Because we don't have an ending, a lot of teams are still not included, and there's still nothing to explain what's going on. Not to mention a lot of technical stuff. And I want to finish this before the World Cup ends, which is in 3 days. So I need to lock in. First I made a death screen for when the player, well, dies. Pretty simple. And I also made the enemies turn into ragdolls when they die, because I think that's pretty funny. And now we need to make a main menu. And I have a pretty good idea and also the name for the game, but first we need to make a new character. We need to make the man himself. After all, he's the one that sends us to get the World Cups. And after a little bit of texturing, this is what I got. Okay, so it doesn't look that good. But I'm on a tight schedule here, I can't waste time on this. To make the main menu, I'm gonna need a model of the World Cup trophy. So I found one on Sketchfab made by Weymouth, so thank you for that. I then had to prepare the main menu scene, and I think I made this look a lot more dramatic than it needed to be. But here is how the main menu looks. Yeah, pretty dramatic, I don't know why I did that. And as you may notice, the name for the game is gonna be Fix It for Argentina. It's the joke I've been seeing around all the time. I still need to make a better logo though. But first, we need to make a cutscene. That's right, we're making a cutscene for this. I've never made a cutscene for a video game, so this is gonna be my first time, which means that the method I'm gonna use is gonna be pretty bad. But that doesn't matter, because I now finished the cutscene, and it's working perfectly fine. And you can even skip it if you want. That's better than most video games already. I then made a cutscene for the ending, I added a pause menu, and a few other stuff. Which means that it's time for the final touches, like adding sound effects, making a proper logo for the game, and killing a lot of the fans on the stadium, because I think lower NPCs would like a bit. And with that, the game is fully finished. and just in time because the final is tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's not a good final because Argentina is there. I will now work on putting the game on itch.io so you can play. And the game should already be available to play by the time you watch this. And of course, the game is free. I must say that I really enjoyed making this game. When I started the channel, I talked about making all types of games, including stupid games just for fun. And besides the Silksong remake from memory, I feel like this is the first game to fit that category. And hopefully one day I'll do something like this again. But for now, I'll let you go so you can play the game. I hope you guys enjoy playing the game, and thank you so much for watching the video. If you did enjoy the video, then maybe there's something you should do. I don't know, maybe there's something that you probably should do, I don't know, I'm just saying. But really though, thank you for watching and thank you for sticking around. And once again, I want to remind that this video was just for entertainment. It is not meant to make fun of anyone or insult anyone. This is just for jokes and fun so we can have a good laugh. And with that, the video is over, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.